leaders, they think they know what's happening in the company, but they can't see it. Where are the bottlenecks stopping me from getting it going? And what do I do to solve them? And this is where Cophi comes in. The mission of Cophi is that we help mobilize change by turning invisible barriers into visible opportunities. We do that through two things. Number one is we can show how a system of people is truly collaborating. And we do that by combining social network data and AI. And therefore we can diagnose collaboration obstacles. We can show where the system works and where it doesn't, so you know what to do to fix it. The second thing we do is we help the organizations and also consultants and coaches to take charge of change. And we do that through two things. We train consultants to be able to confidently sell and use Cophi. And the second thing we do is we train internal change makers to sustain change.
I am an executive coach and an organizational consultant. I have been in this capacity the last 10 years, focusing on organizational collaboration. I belong to an organization called the Lateral Space, and we have been very closely collaborating with Cophi the last couple of months. And my other role is in academia. So I am supervising PhD researchers on similar topics. I'll be very happy. The key theme that I'd like us to explore is a paradox of organizations when they are seeking our support. At the same time, they resist that work. And so I want us to maybe think for a moment why that happens, to be able to connect it to what organization network analysis could do for that particular paradox. That's what I call the organizational dilemma, when organizations actually want, but they also resist change at the same time. These two parameters create an infinite loop, right? So we want the transformation. We are asking for it. Different parts of the problem that they want to fix it can be very specific and explicit about it. But they also are trying to sustain the equilibrium, even though they want the change. And that some of the reasons why they want to do it is they don't want to open Pandora's box. They don't want to be blamed themselves for part of that problem. They want to avoid the uncertainty that the transformation is going to bring to them. And also, there is also a postponement of the hard work that comes with that. So what we can see around shaking the status quo is that, first of all, my desire for change is captured and my hunger for change is captured in that data, but it's done in ways that is actually visual, is manageable, and in ways that we can also start working on as data. The other aspect of that shaking the status quo is that the data that is get generated is enterprise-wide, as opposed to the part of the system that we begin to work with or we begin to have dialogue on. And that already is an intervention because it generates appetite in the different parts of the organization wanting to do something with that problem statement. And I think most importantly, it's on the table already and it cannot be disputed. It's not my interpretation of their feedback. It's what's already been said. So in order for this to yield change, you also need the confidence for it, the safety for it. And those programs that contain even the discussion of that feedback already can create safety because the conversation begins to emerge in ways that is constructive. The other aspect I think that has already been spoken is on systemic change is overwhelming. So you need to be very pointed, first of all, to disconnect certain issues from the value of the people, the value of the leadership, but you really focus in ways that it becomes more manageable and more safe as opposed to the overwhelm. And I think finally, as they begin to discuss that feedback, already it creates a certain level of relief and of hope that things could actually emerge into also actionable ways.
I wonder actually whether, in, let's say, big systems, big organizations, whether the individuals really feel a burning platform. At least based on our experience, actually, one of the main fail factors of why transformations fail is how do you make sure that people really have a sense of urgency, right? Because I think not the knowing, by the way, but really feeling, this is a burning platform.
Arguably, I would say that silo behavior is a way to do exactly what you described, is so that I can create a safety bubble of my own perception and reality, and I can locate the problem on the other side, and therefore it gets fragmented. The reality and the totality gets fragmented, and that's a way of sustaining status quo. So I think to that point, the fact that the totality of the issue gets visualized, so not just how, as product development we feel about sales, but if we see the total picture and the loop, we can start owning the part of the total problem is one of those. Secondly, is that I am not giving, with organization network analysis, I'm not giving feedback about the totality of the transformation, which could also be far-fetched. But I'm giving feedback about the day-to-day in the different parts of the organization that matter to me. But if everything is positive, then I start seeing, oh, you know, this partner that I thought, this other function that I thought things were going quite well, they're saying that we are not responding as much, or so the silo behavior will, one way or another, come back very visually. So that's, I think, the idea of trying to get exposure and more ownership to the issue than only our own storyline.
I was in many conversations with the CEO telling the CMO there was a problem and telling the CTO that there was a problem and that their two teams just needed to work better together. And that was refuted over and over and over again, because by themselves, they were working very effectively doing the things that they were doing. It wasn't until we'd run the network analysis where we actually got the opinion of the entire group that was working within the technology team and within the marketing team, that we could see that actually at an aggregated level, we needed to drive consensus across the entire population rather than just two people inside the organization who had an opinion. So that kind of building an accepted consensus within an organization was able to shine a light on a problem that perhaps was lost. And so this is where we kind of talk about illuminating the barriers, which might not be visible. And therein lies the power to kind of catalyze change where people may not believe the change is required.
AK is a global international corporation with head office in Sweden that produces vegetable oils and fats. We're based in 5 countries in West Africa, US, all over Asia Pacific, all European countries. So, I mean, working with the people and change and transformation aspect, it's truly a global environment. Having operations in so many different parts of the world, of course, we had both good, bad, and management situations. Within the people and culture organization, we were very much aware of this, but struggled a little bit about how to go about it. So, you know, historically really put the people development agenda on the strategical business success agenda. So that was the largest battle I had to sort of take before we even got to the point of starting this program. Being we want to run a global transformation program that we call a cultural transformation journey, really defining this sort of, with my words, minimal level of sort of what does it mean to work within AK. No matter if you work in Ghana, Burkina Faso, Malmö, Edison in the US, you know, what do we actually share? Then of course there's variations, of course. So that's how it started off. I think Cophi was rudimental to us because, and why do I say that? Because tying back to things we sort of touched upon earlier, avoiding change, saying you want to change, but in my words, whenever it hits my arena, no, everybody else should change, but I don't have to change. A little bit of that sort of resistance or denial or whatever you want to put it in. And I think Cophi really, really was rudimental to support us to get beyond that, to get beyond saying, no, this is not a problem or this is not an issue. It really helped us put focus on saying, I don't care, you know, what you say, because the figure speaks. This is what the team say. This is how the organization scale it, etc. We need to go in working here, and also keeping focus on the right things. And Cophi really helped because it became about the numbers. It wasn't just me saying something or perceiving something, as some of you said before, feeling it, knowing it. It wasn't me. I could just say, look, this is what our employees tells us. This is how the team experiences it. It's not about us. It's not about me. So I think from that perspective, Cophi was absolutely critical, because there was a huge temptation at the time to go into transactional state of mind. But we're doing the right things, sure, but are they really changing? Are we, you know, on a transformation journey? That's sort of the questions I wanted.
My experience of being internal and working as part of a post-merger integration project, which was just utterly chaotic, was that there appeared to be about 100 fires lit at any one time, and whoever shouted loudest was getting the attention. And what we really could have done with was something like Cophi, not so much because we would become obsessed with the number and what the number meant, but more because we needed some way of prioritizing our interventions and our time and what was going to go first. And you can do some of that with just, you know, what's strategically most valuable, but sometimes there are things that, you know, without some sort of a like the visual image of the organization and what parts are red and what parts are green is a really useful way to start directing resources and attention. Even if you don't buy too much into what NCS means at the end of the day, you've still got a lot of valuable perspectives behind that number, which you can use to inform where to prioritize and what you might find there when you do start digging.
I agree. That's a huge value, because, and that's how we use it at AK as well, to really prioritize. We use that together with a sort of employer engagement pulse score. So merging the two really to where do we put our focus in at the moment. Very, very important, because as you say, otherwise it's the one screaming the loudest. way to go. It's a very good point.
Maria said, we've learned a lot about the right way to do this and about where to engage and how to do it and how to make it more impactful. And particularly actually in things like we've just discussed, what does NCS mean and how should a leadership team interpret it is a really important question. And these are the kinds of things that we're doing in our diagnose and design phase, where we're actually getting in the room with leaders and really helping them to understand what this data actually means and how to use it in their business. Some of the ways in which we are now supporting consultant partners, things like helping to pitch and tender, putting together proposals. We do our own sales marketing, but we're happy to do co-marketing materials and finding new opportunities. I think we'll come on to that in more detail in a second, but actually helping you unlock new opportunities within your clients. Then obviously all of the things that you might expect in terms of partners and delivery. We've talked about the reports. We can run workshops for your clients. We manage the project throughout, technical support as you'd expect. And then one of the things that we're building out more is our training and development. So actually teaching people how to use Cophi more effectively, both for clients within their organizations, but also for consultants, so that you feel confident going into the room with your clients and talking about Cophi and using the data really effectively in your programs. This is part of what actually I think gets me quite excited as someone who's kind of worked in the consultancy space for a long time, which is looking at a Cophi diagram. It's kind of like opening up all of your work streams of business for the coming year or more. You can think about an organizational chart like this, and all those red lines and orange dots become workshops, training programs, leadership development, cultural transformation. They're all potential projects that could be discussed with the client. And this isn't just kind of sort of just about growth. It's also about deepening that strategic relationship with the client, understanding their business better than they do in some cases, and also being able to benchmark and really demonstrate the value of your work through the way that Cophi can measure the improvements in collaboration. We're also building out this training program for consultants, which we'd love to get feedback on and discuss with people in more detail if they're interested. So Petros will be part of this, one of the trainers on this, and also Orwa, who's the kind of the brains behind ONA at Cophi and the person who developed our algorithms and proprietary technology, and so is an absolute deep experts in things like ONA and machine learning. And so we'll be building out this training program in more detail, but we're thinking of sort of a 3-day program where we actually go really deep into ONA and what it is and how it benefits organizations and how Cophi can be used and the kinds of ways it can be adopted to facilitate change. So we're very excited by that. Actually, we think that's a really big opportunity for us to partner more deeply with consultants, and then building a community around that of people who really understand this space intimately and want to use it with clients and support each other. And then finally, on a sort of more thinking slightly more operational and commercial, when we partner with consultants, we have a sort of a partnership agreement in place that agrees how we're going to work together, including referral compensation and all sorts of things like that. We also have an operating model, so we will have all of our compliance and GDPR in place and training, and we'll develop an operating model with consultants we work with. And then we've got some ideas there on pricing. You can see the pricing indicatively is quite broad because there's a sort of an initial, as those of you who've worked with us in the past, there's a kind of initial setup, which we just have to go through whether you're scanning 100 people or 4,000 or 10,000. But then obviously the economies of scale get much greater as you increase the numbers.